Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast, as part of a Proxyl interlude, or this audio podcast as part of a Proxyl intermission. This audio podcast, as part of a Cataclysm Chiasma. This audio podcast, as part of a Storm Robotics production. In this interlude, this intermission, an overview in regard to cytokines and coping. So cytokines are soluble proteins or glycoproteins produced by white cells or lymphocytes. Other characters of cytokines comprise of pleiotropism. They have where cells have several target cells and actions, and various cytokines distribute similar actions um, uh, and where cytokines can raise or decline the titer of the titer of own manufacturer or of other cytokines, where where uh, where where works by authors have highlighted sort of had highlighted in around the new millennium, around the new millennium. It is well known that cytokines are elicited in resident cells of the central nervous system, and cytokines have an important role during the physiological processes. Cytokines unconstrained by stimulated immune cells are only means by which they correspond with the central nervous systems with the central nervous system. Interleukin 1, interleukin 2, interleukin 6, interferon gamma, and tumor necrosis factor or TNF can trigger the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis or HPA axis, and in rotation caused by glow and cause and it sorry and in rotation also where there's sort of emission by the glucocorticoids. The exact location of where cytokines manifest in terms of deleterious activity within the brain has not has 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 to an extent has been investigated. um, to an extent has been investigated. Investigations have postulated to determine central and peripheral organization of cytokines and the role in a constellation of psychobiological dimensions, including sleep, around sleep, eating, and general and in around mood, etc. Only one investigation looked at the immune system reactions to laboratory stress and strain of psychological exertion and uncontrollability. Investigators had tried to establish particular effort and uncontrollability to immune system reaction in stress and coping. Participants have been involved in one of four investigational conditions in an effort to understand endocrine, immune, and sympathetic nervous system reactions to designate assignment. The investigation informed that uncontrollability led to an increased level of cortisol, and suggests that endeavor, i.e., coping, and uncontrollability may have negative effects on immune cells. There are now further understanding between emotions and disease in terms of a balance. The balance consists of nerve signals and specific pathways specific pathways, and very much related to coping, as related coping and coping strategies is both an excess or an inadequate stress hormone response to illness, surplus with vulnerability uh, vulnerability to contagion and insufficient hormone in long-standing ill health recipients, and so continual HPA excess through stressful situations, and where there is a coping demand can potentially affect T cells through suppressor effects of the glucocorticoids. One very important aspect around research is establishing has been in establishing the association between the effects of early life stress and or coping tendency to disease in amongst adulthood. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of a Proxyl interlude or intermission. This audio podcast as part of a Cataclysm Chiasma, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production.